Hello, this is DW Lemon, and today I am going to be commentating on the C League Championship. This is going to be Heron versus Akuchi. The winner of this will be the winner of Season 75's C League tier. I think I got that right. But yeah, so the winner of this is going to win the C division for this year. So this should be interesting. So we can take a look at this kingdom real quick. Heron has the much desirable 5-2 here. You're going to have Finning with Forager and Sentry. And then you also have Cursing with Trickster. You have +5 Ranger and Forager. Captain looks pretty good here, being able to play Forager, Poet, or Ranger, all great options. You have Draw with Wild Hunt and Hunting Party. A lot of good 5s here, I'm not gonna lie. And a lot of good, actually a fairly strong kingdom. You also have, there's also Academy here too. Heron with the 5-2 Open Sentry, which is, I think, the right play. There's also Academy here. So you have a lot of village here. I am tempted to say here that, okay, Akuchi is going for Poet Silver? Maybe they're wanting to hit Captain. So, interesting turn 3 shuffle. Well, Heron, okay. What happened here? What happened? Heron drew 5 coppers. How is... It's turn 3 already. So Aku opened silver nothing. Oh, yeah, no. Heron had like a bad opening shuffle, and they bomb decked their sentry. Luckily for Heron here, they're going to see 2 starting cards, one of them being in the States, so that's very good. They have an option of what 4 they would like. I imagine you would take Poet? Yeah. Poet makes sense there. Akuchi going for the Forager on 3, which is, I think, a good play. So... Oh, one thing that's going to hit is also Rapid Expansion. You know, one thing I forgot to hit and to mention. With these Poets being in play, Rapid Expansion will likely go off, honestly, next turn for Heron. Do I want... What do I want as Heron, though? That's an interesting question. Yeah, it's probably Silver. Silver is probably the best you could reasonably hope for, I think. I mean, I was thinking of some acute stuff you could do with Transmute, you know. You could turn a Victory card into a gold. But that doesn't seem entirely right to me. So no. So Akuchi is going to get the first captain here. Would I have considered... They got a hunting party. That's probably the safer play. The Trickster was on my mind. Academy also. Both Rapid Expansion hitting. I actually don't know. I don't... Without Rapid Expansion hitting, you may not actually even buy Academy here. So this should probably be a Captain. It could also be a Trickster, but I think Captain actually makes more sense. The thing about Captains is it is going to give you... Captains will give you some deck control here, but these are already some pretty thin decks, so I might start thinking about... Maybe an Inherit's position. I might start thinking about... I might get a Captain here, but I might start thinking about how I'm going to increase my payload. Akuchi putting a silver aside. You may even consider getting a wedding if you're in a Heron's place. At some point. Do you trash this? You may honestly not. Like, the answer may be no. Like, yeah, payload's really scarce here right now. I'm not gonna lie, I was tempted to get the Trickster earlier. They opt for silver gold, which I actually think I'm not... I don't hate that, actually. Not gonna lie. Your biggest problem here is heron is you don't have a lot of payload. So finding ways to... Prioritizing doing that before getting a captain actually sounds like a good idea. Especially since the captain from last turn is going to play this turn, and you can simply put another captain into play for next turn because of rapid expansion. Akuchi gets a captain. Good play. Akuchi also opting to get a wedding. I don't know. These have actually been some good plays. I think I like both what Heron did and Akuchi did there. I like Aku's position. I think I do too. I mean, he's got a ranger. Fat decks with rapid expansion are nice. I agree, yeah. I think Aku has more coppers and just more payload in his deck. And one thing that's good about that, well, obviously, I mean, rapid expansion drawing your deck's really easy. And especially with what's this, the journey token, I think is what it's called? Yeah, especially with the journey token flipped and, like, Aku being able to play a ranger, like, next turn, that's going to be very good. What... Heron sets aside a gold and a ranger. Well, also, they're going to draw 5 next turn, so that's going to be fine. Yeah, both of them, I think, wisely trying to use ranger draw here. I had no idea it was called the Journey token. I've always called it the Adventurer token. I honestly don't know what it's called. I should look it up. Like, Journey token may be wrong. Oh, it is Journey? Okay, cool. Yeah, nice. Okay, so it is a Journey token. Sweet. Yeah. I get confused. The card says Journey token on it. Yeah, that it does. That it does. I could have just looked at the card. Who reads card? Honestly, I'm with Breppert. That's how I learned the game. Just like clicking on stuff, seeing what it does. Okay. So, Heron gets a village green. They have a captain in play. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, both players kind of trying to set the start of their turn with a ranger, like a ranger draw, I suppose, which is pretty nice. I think that's certainly what you want to do here. From this position, it looks kind of even. I'm not gonna lie. Like, they both look like they're in a pretty decent spot. Yeah, no, agreed. Especially if your main payload is gonna be basically just golds and silvers. I think it's one of the problems of this board is you can't really expand your payload that quickly. And I guess you're buying a lot of weddings here too. You know, this would have been a really good board for that tournament a couple days ago. Buying wedding a lot is very optimal. Important question here. When does JMills add the T-Mute here? Honestly, I think he would have added it pretty early on. There was one time earlier in the game I was considering getting a transmute for Heron back when he had an estate in deck. It's actually not even terrible here. You can essentially gain an estate and transmute those estates into golds. It's still probably not great, but you could make something out of it. Are you sort of nurse the T-Mood if you can't game and play? No. Yeah, I mean, it would be... The goal would come next turn, but... It's something you could do, you know? It's a transmute thing you can do, and it's not completely terrible. Maybe. It would slow your tempo down, sure, but, you know, with no gameplay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to be buying wedding a bunch, which, funny enough, hasn't actually resulted in that much VP. I mean, Aku and Heron both have like 5 off wedding, which is, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I guess it is something. It is a lot of weddings to be bought. That is true. This is the most. I think I can't think of a board that I've seen wedding like bought as much as right now. If that, I probably could have structured that sentence better, but you get the idea. Let's see. So Aku has 2 captains in play. 19. I think you gotta start greening a little bit for Aku, right? I think getting like 1 province sounds alright. Maybe getting like. That's 4 more than my uncle has managed. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is pretty much just buy a bunch of treasure to get your payload expanding. It is. I like rapid expansion though, so I would like this kind of board, but teach their own. Captain Province Wedding. Can you afford that? Yes, you can. Okay, yeah, I think that's probably the right play. You know, that's true. I guess your uncle went through just like a ton of marriages in like a short period of time. It is what it is, I guess. It's whatever. Do you gain question here? Do you gain copper if you're Aku? Like it doesn't seem like a bad since checks are kind of being drawn here. I think you actually would want a copper here. Like you do province copper or wedding. He sounds experienced. Well, at least he knows what he's getting into. That's all I gotta say. Buys the village green. Aku probably doesn't want a green right now, I would assume. Silver, then wedding. That's fair. I do like, personally, holding, like, some province for, like, a little bit of, like, greening pressure, but it's not so important that you could not skip it this turn. Like, you could definitely skip it, I think. Let's see. So, how much money does Heron's deck have? I'm kind of curious about that. I think you would forger this copper. This captain, I don't... It's basically going to be a similar thing. Well, maybe you'd rather draw it up with Poet. There's an argument to draw it up, this, like, last copper up with Poet. Because payload is so scarce that you actually might want to keep your coppers. I could see that. But then again, if you forgered this copper, you get the same amount of value, and you can't set aside a copper for next turn. 24 in coins, I think. 22 in treasure. Let's see. Actually, I haven't counted the amount of coins. I'll subtract the debt here, so that's going to be 4 coins right now. Plus 9 gold, plus 4 in silvers. So that's be plus 13, plus 4, 17, 19. I guess, yeah, now it's 20. Drawing all that up. Look, double prov. I guess you're not in that much danger of dudding with captains, but I'd still be kind of concerned, to be honest. What else do I do here? I need to stop playing with this. Maybe Copper Wedding? Or Ranger. Yeah, Ranger Copper's good. Yeah, that's... Okay, so Heron opts to get the double province there. Can Aku draw his deck? Are we getting... Our deck's getting so big that we can't really draw them? Well, actually, no. There's a Journey token that they haven't used yet. Okay, so... Aku draws his entire deck. Opting to use Poet instead of Forager. Aku has to respond by double provincing now before he gets too behind on greening. Alright, so here... I do imagine the copper strategist would be happy here, because I do imagine getting like 3 coppers here is really good for Aku. It does put Heron in a tough spot. Here, how much payload does Heron have coming in? Well, no. Well, Heron's gonna triple this turn. Heron will likely have to triple this turn, most likely. I think Heron can do that. That'll put Heron at 35 points. And then Aku will have to make up a... what kind of point deficit? Because I think Heron's going to hit 24 here. Heron doesn't have any debt, and... Well, okay, that's assuming Heron draws. Heron might dud here. Okay. Wait, why did we trash that Ranger? I guess... Can we have played Poet? Okay. That is really bad, actually. Yeah, no, this is actually really bad. You have to basically... Right now, I think if Heron, you could... For the most part, I think you could safely triple prov if you hit 24. Since Heron didn't draw his entire deck, you're gonna have to sit back with some duchies here. I think you take 2 duchies. Maybe get a hunting party here. You need to make sure you draw. You can't afford to not draw your deck. That being said, I don't think Aku can safely... If H triples is that good? Let's see. Let's subtract 9. Triple would be 18. So... They have 35. Aku would have to make up a 17-point VP deficit with 1 province. So Aku would have to hit 28, which I don't. If he has 28, I'm gonna look silly. But I mean, if he doesn't have 28, I don't think Aku could really win from that line. Yeah, extra captains are going to be good here. You could potentially... I'm trying to think. You could potentially get... If Aku can get to 32, he can win here. This game is a good lesson in having slightly more payload in the mid-game, not being the determiner of the winner. Getting the transition into the end game right is so important in this game, and really hard. Yes, you have... I feel like this game's a lot about... I mean, a lot of Dominion games are like this. When you're adding payload, you also have to still be worried about your draw, and being able to, like, still see all your good cards and draw your deck. I think Heron actually might have been okay on that second last turn if he maybe put a non-terminal in. And rapid expansion, because I mean, I think part of the thing that rapid expansion makes the games go a little faster is you can put a lot of non-terminals into play, and get sort of a village effect off that. So, I mean, I don't know. Can Aku win here? If he trashes, yeah, it hits 32. Aku could hit 28 there, but he did have to... He did have to trash a few provinces. Either way, well played by Aku. Aku had a slightly worse opening split and sort of hung in there, though Heron did bottom deck his stuff. Oh, wait. Okay. It's all good. It's all good. We have the spec chat to rattle on, Breppert. So it is all good to me. Aku has a 2-5. What do you do here, is Aku? What is Druid? Yeah, no, I do too. I had no idea your uncle married a bunch when you were younger. Or when he was younger. You could... It's kind of cool. I don't know. Do you have a lot of gains here with Golem? Not Golem. Cobbler, Cauldron. You have some draw. You'll have Farriers and you'll have Faithful Hounds. For draw. Village, you have Ports. You do have Golem if you do want to play with that. I think you open Blockade on the 5. My first instinct was Farrier. My first instinct was Farrier because basically what happened... You could put this estate aside. I guess that's fine. I was thinking opening Farrier and then trying to get a Cemetery Trash. Oh, actually that's really smart. Yeah, using save to get the Haunted Mirror set aside, so you can do, I hope? I mean, Blockade is good. That's still a fine play. Actually, it's going to work out for Aku anyways, having 2 estates and 2 coppers here and seeing their Blockade turn 3. I would have been tempted to do a big Ferry overpay and then buy a Cemetery. Well, this also worked out too, so I could see this being better. You can Blockade Sem better than Fairy Sem, but you can just do Blockade first here, I think. That's true. And I think, well, I mean, if it played out the way it did for Aku, if you see, like, Blockade turn 3, it's going to be much better. So, Heron's going to set aside a Blockade, which I think is a good play. Though this will be a little bit sad for Heron here. What would you buy as Heron here? This Architect's... No, Architect's Guild's not super inspiring me here. But yeah, I guess I could see Blockades first being a pretty good open. Or being what you want to do here. Akuchi is going to see their Blockade again, which will be really good for them. Heron's going to do the Cemetery Trash thing, as expected. And they're going to set aside a copper. I think a good play from Heron. Over or under 10 turns? Well, that's actually a good question. There's not really a strong draw here, which makes me think this isn't really going to be under 10 turns. But that's just my intuition here. Could be wrong. Well, actually, I guess the Farrier pile is pretty weak. You have Ports. Cemetery can go. Blockade will probably run out at some point. I think it's entirely possible. The only thing is, like, Blockade as being an attack will slow you down from getting certain cards that you would rather not. want to gain. So it's like maybe if Heron maybe would have wanted to gain possibly a blockade here. Well, actually, I think Heron would probably still prefer cemetery here, but like people are gonna be a little bit more reluctant to get like blockades if there's curses on them. The little curse token. Thanks, Akuchi's asterisk. I don't exactly know what Akuchi's asterisk is. You're describing the blockade drawback in the exact style of Akuchi's asterisk under stat card. Oh. Oh, yeah. That is something, that is like something he would, I think, I don't know if it's like word for word, but that is something similar to something he posted in Thunder Dominion. Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. That's actually pretty cool. Heron opts to get a ghost, which I agree with. Agushi will get some blockades on ports, which I think would have been Heron's ideal target here. I think if you're Heron, you still might try to get a... Well, actually, no. Well, okay, the reason you would want to get a port here is because one port's going to be set aside by blockade, and another one is going to basically be in your discard pile. But I guess underling can also work as well. Alright, so... how's the game looking right now? I think Heron... I think they both have 3 blockades. They both... Heron has a little bit of a thinner deck and a ghost. At the same time, Akuchi is still player 1. I mean, from a surface level view, it looks like Heron's ahead here. And I guess the funny thing about Architect's Guild is you could Heron could get a port here and Architect's Guild for silver to go up in payload. This is actually another interesting game where the payload options are pretty there's a couple of like strong like options on the board, but there isn't like great like payload expansion, so stuff like getting silvers and golds becomes pretty important here, I think. Alright. Wait. Oh, okay, so... oh, I see what they did. They opted to get a underling, and now they get their silver. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a better play. That's I think, a better optimized way to use your favors than what I was thinking of. Alright, so we have a 5 here. You could consider a cauldron. Cobbler is not terrible, I don't think. You could also be looking at farrier draw. There's a couple of good options here. It's actually not very obvious what Heron should go with here, I think. You could also save the cemetery, go with maybe another blockade, for instance. I think I like saving the cemetery and maybe like buying another blockade for Heron. Heron opted to get a Faithful Hound, which is okay. They're going to have a port coming in, so I guess that's not going to be too bad. I guess it would make sense to be concerned about drawing your deck. And as well as Faithful Hound's the only, like, draw outside of Farrier. Well, I guess Golem can be draw too. But I doubt that people want to play with Golem on this board. I would not be super tempted to myself. Aku having a little bit of a dud there. Basically being able to set aside and stay with Way of the Worm. I kind of think if I'm Heron that I keep blockading ports and blockades. So, and that way it's just going to be harder for Akuchi to. If Akuchi wants one of those really good things you want in your deck, then they will have to take a curse, which sounds less than ideal. Okay, so this should be a blockade, I think. You blockade a blockade. Kind of keep your chain of blockades going. I guess one thing Aku could do, if they're able to draw their deck this turn, which it kind of seems unlikely, but we'll just pretend they can. If Aku can't draw his deck this turn, he can essentially gain a blockade with a blockade, and then blockade a cemetery to trash the curse he gained. I'm not too hopeful that Aku is going to draw this turn, but he might. But that might be the best way to play it if... that might be the best way for Aku to play it. Also, it's pretty important that Heron here has 5 blockades to Akuchi's 3. So that is going to be pretty important. Heron's going to just naturally have a lot more pile pressure, I think. Yeah, especially with this Farrier set aside. Yeah. If you're Aku, I think what you have to do is you have to take the curse here. Then again, you might be setting up a pile out for Heron. But it's actually not obvious. Chat, what are you thinking? What do you think that? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I think taking the curse, you have to basically do that there. It does lower pile some, but it also makes Heron's life a little bit more difficult, considering that to get the last blockade, they will have to take a curse, and they are behind on VP. Well, actually, the curses would even out in VP wise. Trying to think, how much money would Heron have to generate to win here? Oh. Blockading that cemetery. I'm trying to think if that's the right thing to do. We have a whole 1.5 turns after this one to get under 10, by the way. It's still turn... It is turn 9. You would have been right, Brebbert, if Heron can close it out this turn, which I think there's a chance he can. If he draw... But it would be more dependent on if Heron can draw. No, it's true, but I wasn't thinking this was gonna take, I wasn't thinking this was gonna be under 10 turns, to be honest, you know? I should have, but... In retrospect, it seems obvious, but... Yeah. Okay. It does seem... No, I mean, 10 does seem reasonable. As far as, like, something... If I was gonna make a bet with you, or just in general. What? It's actually a pretty tricky spot from Heron. I think Aku did a... I'd stay away if I was a betting man. I am not. Yeah, I am not a betting man. I would not fare well in Vegas personally, but we'll see. Yeah, okay. So thinking about Heron's position here, okay, you probably want to play this farrier, I assume, but you're not gonna draw your deck, most likely. You already play your Faithful Hound. It's actually a pretty hard position. I think Aku blockading Blockade and Cemetery does actually put a lot of pressure on Heron, who is behind a VP at this moment. So Heron right now has 3 buys, 9 coins. They opt to take a Cemetery. Do I disagree with that? Do they have a winning line? I'm not... Did they have a winning line that I missed this entire time? Okay, they're entering cemeteries. They better... They're gonna take these curses. Why are they not... Oh! Way of the Worm. Okay. Heron calculates a win there. That's pretty impressive. I would have been tempted to just click the farrier there, but that was an impressive find by Heron. Yeah, that's... Yeah, excellent play by Heron on there. I think Aku was a little behind, but that was a really good... I'm not sure you could have done... The only other option for Aku would have been to not touch Cemetery or not touch Blockade. I think I agree with touching Blockade. I'm not sure if I agree with touching Cemetery. It's hard to say. I'd have to look back at those positions. But that was a very good find by Heron. That was not an easy one find at all. Alright, so what does this board look like? We have a bigger token, so we can buy a 5 if we want. I imagine both players will be, well... Do you actually want to buy a Cultist here? Because, I mean, it seems most likely you would. But the reason you would not consider doing that is because you can trash a Ruin to potentially buy a Siren, which is a very good card. You want Cargo Warehouse. Cargo Ship... What are you trying to do with Cargo Warehouse? Cargo Necro? Oh, yeah, wait. Cargo Ship puts aside Siren. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking, like, why would you set aside a Cultist when you could buy one in the open? But it's like, yeah, Cargo can set aside Siren. That's correct. So, yeah. You play Warehouse to see your Cargo Ship sooner, hopefully, or have a higher chance of seeing it, and then, yeah, you set aside a Siren. I could also see double cargo. No, I think I like warehouse cargo better. Their Shy Gatekeeper makes someone want to buy a Gatekeeper for some reason. You probably don't, but, you know, it's some buff to a really bad card. Yeah, the opening, the more you look at it, the less obvious it gets. Gatekeeper also sets aside Siren. That's funny. Yeah, that's a funny interaction. I haven't thought about that, but that is correct. It does do that. But I'd imagine you would take a Bandicamp. Well, any of the other 5s over Gatekeeper. Unless you wanted it to be a lab. Actually, you could take... I could see taking one Gatekeeper as a lab, but that's probably about it. That is a funny interaction. Gatekeeper can't set aside Siren. It probably looks like Akuchi opening Necromancer. I guess Necromancer is the only thinning here, right? Yeah, I think that makes sense. Anyways, looks like they're gonna set aside a Siren here. Looks good. They both see their cargo ships. They both set aside Sirens. Aku will obviously play this as a... Was it Zombie Spy? Do you trash your warehouse here? I guess you don't. Like, what I was thinking about is, like, you could trash your warehouse there to get a second Siren in your shuffle. But Heron opts not to do that. Which... It's not an obvious play. Alright, so Aku has 4, potentially 5 here. Bandicamp, yeah, Bandicamp makes sense. That's sort of what I was thinking could be. I guess he plays the Zombie Mason, hope you see an estate. Oh, actually, no, there's a cargo ship down there. It's a good thing you did not play Zombie Mason, though it would have trashed. It would have trashed an estate there, but it would not have... It's too risky to trash your cargo ship there, I think. I think, yeah, I was about to say, I like Bandicamp better as Way of the Squirrel here, which I think Aku tends to agree with. So Heron will probably set aside another Siren. I think that looks like the best play here pretty clearly. So Aku also... Did Aku set aside Siren? I think they did, yeah. Okay, so both players seem to be getting their Sirens in play now. Unfortunately, squirreling this Siren won't do any good. Yeah, so you're gonna draw 2, and then Siren's only gonna draw 1, unfortunately. So it doesn't actually get you any draw. Sad interaction. You know what? Playing the squirrels for the vibes is fine. Maybe just... It's like way of the horsing your horse or oxing your necropolis. You know, you just... That is true. Better sad squirrels than none at all. You know what? I can agree with that. Just for the funsies. Aku doesn't see their Bandicamp here, unfortunately. They do see Siren, which is much more important. But, yeah. Has anyone hit a squirrel with a car and then found a way to emotionally recover, asking for a friend? I usually just don't hit the squirrel, but, I don't know. Sometimes they do jump in front of your car. I could probably not give very good advice on that. I would say Or then don't hit the squirrel if you can, which is probably not the best advice. So, oh, interesting. Heron gets a flagship. I think his Aku. Now these are going to be some happier squirrels, I would say. I think his Aku should both definitely wave the squirrel, both the necromancer and the bandit camp. You have no idea how hard I try not to at this stage in my life. My friend hit a crow yesterday while we were driving. Ooh, that's rough. Oh gosh, I'm not sure I like triggering that shuffle at all. I don't know. I mean, I guess if Aku saw his other Siren, that would have been a huge deal. But other than that, that just seems so bad. Yeah, no. Out where I live, there's just like a bunch of deer that just like jump in front of your car. So you always gotta like watch out for that. This should probably be a zombie thief, or is it zombie thief? Zombie spy, yeah. Oh, well, they get actually a very good zombie mason hit, so that's gonna be pretty good. You don't have to gain a card off zombie mason, right? You may gain a card, yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't have gained a copper there. Yeah, gaining a copper doesn't seem great. I think you would just rather... I mean, if you have to gain a card, I guess you gain a copper, but you definitely didn't have to do that there. And sometimes, like, one stop card can make a difference. Yeah, copper is definitely worse than nothing. Especially when you have, like, power cards you want to see, you know? Or, not power cards, more powerful cards you would wish to see in your shuffle. Should Aku has 7 here. I'm actually... Aku trying to save their spoils. Yeah, I think that's probably a good play. I don't think I actually like the province there. Play Baker. The cargo ship will actually draw you more playing as a normal cargo ship than playing Squirrel, funny enough. I guess it would take some deck tracking, but if you have a bandit camp down there, you may consider buying a cultist here. I think this should be a cult. Well, I haven't been tracking Aku's deck, but I think if you do see you have a bandit camp down there, which there's a likelihood I think he does, you would set aside a cultist here for sure. I mean, at this point, I mean, there's no plus. There's plus by a farmer's market, but it's kind of heavy to the deck and terminal. So I don't know. I'm a believer in the late stage cultist, but I could see Aku not being that case. Not being for that. Other options, you could set aside a Baker or a bandit camp. Yeah, setting aside a Baker is probably fine. Okay, so there was not a bandit camp down there. I wasn't. So, you know, Baker is fine. It's building up coffers allows you to hit provinces on weaker boards, so I'm kind of okay with that. What is Heron doing? Heron opting to play 3 squirrels in a row, which gets you better draw than, that does get you better draw than just playing a Siren. Though I think a warehouse would actually be pretty good. What did Heron get last turn? Buys and gains a farmer's market. My gut feeling is that a warehouse would probably have been better for here and there. Like, we're not seeing our decks. We're hardly seeing 8. So, from like either of these decks. Oh, like Aku is requesting an undo. Okay. We're hardly seeing 8 from any of these decks, and realistically, Heron is sort of struggling to sift a bit. And Heron seems to know something about the value of cards generating 1 more than we do. Yeah, I would agree with that. Maybe his deck needs more payload. Maybe I'm simply the one that has something to learn here. Well, that being said, this turn is actually pretty good for Heron. Let's see. He's zombie apprenticing. A Siren? I don't know about that. I mean, I guess if we have the Squirrel, it becomes your main draw. But I guess what Heron can do is he could flagship and double Squirrel here. You also have the option. It's kind of tricky. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think. I mean, that turn Heron actually could have generated some more payload off of like flagship and flagship farmers market. So that could have been possibly like a duchy and a province there. Wait, why? Wait, okay, wait. Okay, okay. If you flagship, you double way of the Squirrel. You draw 1 more card. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So now this is gonna come down to like money games greening essentially. Honestly, I like flagship warehouses Heron. Yeah, it's gonna be really good. You can just guard some of these curses or green cards. Warehouse best card in the game by a mile at this point. Yeah. You have so much junk, and you're drawing so much with Squirrel that like sifting becomes just super strong here. Or at least it's synergizing really strongly with Squirrel, I would say. Heron could zombie Mason, hope to see a province here. Zombie, don't, wait. Why are we trashing this farmer's market, dude? We can't. That's a terrible play. I'm guessing trashing designer is highly defensible here. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, I mean it makes more sense now. Like if it's Siren's better if it's the only like draw card you play. What did they do here? They bought. Okay, so Heron knows that Aku essentially doesn't have. So Heron bought province and duchy because Aku doesn't. But Aku doesn't have plus buy. So Aku can't buy a province in 1 year. The only thing that could have helped him was that if Necromancer had if he had Zombie Mason, a card that could be turned into a duchy, and Aku could also buy a province. I think that was Aku's only winning line there. But yeah, the plus buy is starting. I think your comment about Heron knowing something about 1 cost cards more than, or like 1 payload generate cards was correct, Breppert. Because it looks like this is just gonna win. The plus buy has actually been really good, and Heron found a way to draw most of his deck, so it actually turned out to be a pretty good play for Heron. Here you have to Dutch Yazaku, but I think Heron should be able to take this if I'm... Yeah, this is definitely a win now. Yeah, it was a win without the spoils, but now it's like an extra win. Now we have perfect square points. And I think that's really what matters there. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 25 is 5. It's evenish. Anyways, Heron is up 2-1 right now. Both games, Heron seemingly had some pretty impressive endgame play, so... I think game 2, Heron found a win, and game 3, Heron made made some better like endgame decisions. It seems like, even against what the commentator would have wished. But Heron did prove that I think the farming the farmers markets were pretty good. So, all right, so Akuchi here having the 4-3. My first impression is just Silk Merchant Amulet. I could see alternate openings, possibly Silk Merchant Cage or double Amulet. It's actually not completely obvious, but I think... I mean, Cage would be really good if... Cage would be really good if you draw it well, but if you draw it poorly, it's going to be awful. So you may just go with, the safest opening to me seems Silk Amulet. Followers for Silk Merchant Ami. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the best open there. Yeah, just buy the great cards and dance on. Yeah, fair enough. Can you do anything cool with innovation here? So you can trash a card, an action card, and gain an animal fair and put that into play. Yeah, that does look fun. That would be pretty cool. Eventually you want to get rid of the amulet, so maybe by that time Silks might have run out. So you might do it at that point. Or you can also do it with Silks too. Yeah, you can trash Silks. I know it's baseline fun, and this looks no different. Yeah, I agreed. Innovation, like, at least in like the top 3 most fun projects, maybe the most fun. Yep, innovation. I'm always looking for a way to make Root Cellar work, but it doesn't look good here, unfortunately. I would love to. I love Root Cellar, but yeah, it does not seem great here. Actually, its payload is actually kind of hard here. You may eventually have to stuff a bunch of map makers in your deck and just like hope that they top deck when your opponent's greening. Because Silk Merchant right now is the only village. So Heron opens with a cage. Okay. They both open Silk Cage. Wait. Order of Masons means you can discard 2 per favor. You both start off with 1 favors. So ideally you'd like to see your Silk and your Cage on top, and you may try to set aside 2 coppers to get a good cage in. It's also a risky play, but I think what would be disastrous is okay. It's disastrous if you see your cage with a bunch of coppers, or in this case, cage bottom decks. If cage is on top for Aku, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit all for not trying to set that whole thing up. Heron just gets a good cage set aside just off the bat, so he's probably looking pretty happy. Weird Slur when you end the game with 83 dead is the most kind of fun kind. Yeah, no, 100%. When you can find a way to gain that's not buying cards directly, that's pretty fun. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. They both got good... They both got some good set-asides of cages. I think Heron got his set-aside a turn earlier. What did Heron buy? Oh, Heron bought Innovation. That makes sense. That's actually pretty good. So you can, so Heron can essentially Innovation in Amulet, which will be really good for him. Most lore accurate to real-life Dominion games, TBH. To be clear, I mean as a kingdom building force, not as an individual. As a kingdom building force, not as an individual. I gotta be real. I'll be real. I have no idea what to say to that. What does a lore accurate Dominion game even look like? As in, the kingdom goes massively into debt to finance its engine building habit. Oh yeah, that would be. That is funny. Yeah. Yeah, that would be very realistic to real life. So Heron's gonna get this amulet in. Heron's gonna get this amulet in. That's gonna be pretty good for Heron. You may consider as Heron getting a silver here off of amulet, and that being your main way of payload expansion. The other option, you could go for like kind of a wishing well. The other option you could go for a wishing well like Vineyards deck. That's totally an option. You know, actually, if you did go the Vineyards route, you could play with like one Root Cellar, like one or two maybe. You know, that wouldn't be completely bonkers. Actually, I actually wonder if Vineyard is the right option here. I mean, if you think about it, it doesn't take a lot of payload. You just need 2 potions to gain. Well, you just really need 2 potions to... Well, I was thinking towards the end of the game, you can basically put your deck down to 2 potions and you can just be getting Vineyards, but you have to gain the other actions for Vineyards to get points. The great thing is about Vineyards is you don't have to figure it out until later. Seems close here. It does seem close. I actually don't know. My theory is if you want to drag the game out, I think is preferable to go for Vineyards. If you're trying to kind of rush the game down, you probably would rather go for Provinces. So it really depends. I think if I'm behind here and my opponent's getting Provinces, I think I have to play for Vineyards, you know? I think that's probably what you have to do. You don't have time to mass wells. Yeah, it would. Yeah, that's the thing about Vineyards here. Getting stuff would be slow. Payload expansion's really slow here. So yeah, you're right. You're not gonna have a ton of time here. I think you pivot to Vineyards if you are very behind. I will say. SM to AF also seems nice. Yeah, that's certainly going to be a good option here, I think. That being said, it does cost a buy. It'd be better once like Silk Merchant's pile realistically. Let's see. I think you set aside with this cage. I guess you can set aside all this stuff. I think using cage sort of as a makeshift grotto, which is actually a pretty good use of cage. So looks like Aku is going to be able to get a province here. So Akuba has a province. That puts him at 27. Heron will get to play a map maker. So this is a good time to have a very good time to have the map maker. Ooh, there we go, yeah. So I think obviously Heron plays Silk Merchant here. Let's see. Is that enough to win? It's enough for Heron to tie. I think Heron can get a tie here because that's 8, 11, 12. One short of a win, unfortunately. But that's still... I think you'd be happy as Heron to take a tie here. Because it's going to be the first of 3.5, and you have a 2-1 lead. So it's almost like taking a win for Heron. So I think you very much... If I'm Heron, I'm very much happy with a tie here. Yeah, province, then obviously... Wait, no! Oh. Oh! Oh! That was such a good play. That was a good play. Wow. You know, like, you play enough Dominion and you get used to patterns, you know? You get used to, like, some force of habits, you know? Like, sometimes it's easy to forget that the province pile isn't itself its own pile. That was honestly a great find by Heron. I totally missed that. They did the Inno A fair thing using Prav as the empty pile. Yeah, that was an excellent play. Like, yeah, that was... It would... If it wasn't so obvious, it'd be a great thing to put in to find the win, but that was... Heron's been playing some really good endgames recently and finding some, honestly, some pretty clutch wins here. I think 2 games have been won off some pretty hard-fought wins. That was a cool play. I'm glad I was here just to see that play. That was really cool. All right, so here we have tax, and then we also have we are inheriting a mining village. So Heron opts to open with Blockade. I don't hate that. I like Blockade better than Groom here, especially Blockade can give some like mining villages, which I think is going to be very good. I'm tempted to... Okay, and as Aku, what I'm tempted to do is, like, essentially pop the mining village and get a modify. Not tempted to ninja there as Heron. I mean, Ooh, the ninja... I see the ninja play. I see where you're cooking. That would have been a really good play, actually. At the same time, it's hard to say if it's... Even as good of a play as it is, it's hard to say if it's better than Blockade. You could get probably a few ninja plays in a row. But it's actually not entirely clear if that was right. It's one of those where if you know it's there, it's easy to find, but it's also easy to overlook. Bridge Troll plus Rush Duchies. Bridge Troll plus Rush Duchies? I feel like it depends. Honestly. You have Village with Mining Village and Diplomat. It does... I think I want to go all the way for the provinces. Oh, I guess... Oh, yeah, you have Bridge Troll Groom. You have Bridge... I see what you're saying. It's actually not... It's really not obvious. Actually, this is actually a pretty good kingdom. It's not the best option. Like, it might just be like a Duchy Groom Rush. But it's definitely not obvious to get there. Yeah. Blockade versus Groom isn't clear to me given Guardian. Yeah. This is like a lot of normally powerful cards that are set up in a very interesting way. Where it doesn't... Where it's not exactly clear what the best thing to do is. Like... There's a situation where you can see getting every kingdom card in this board, you know? Grimrust is usually good with an extra 2 VP pile. That's true, but you can also block that out with like a blockade. Think about it this way. You can also block that out with a Duchy with a blockade, you know? Like you can punish the Groom player that solely goes for that by blocking that out. Does Guardian block the... Interesting thing, does Guardian block the blockade effect? At the start of your next turn. Until then, no, I don't think it does. It does? At the start of your next turn, +1. Until then, when another player plays an attack card, it doesn't affect you. That's... Okay, but you have to play... It's weird. It feels like you have to play that at the end of your turn, and at the start of your next turn, it's not effective anymore, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word for it, Maho. I think Guardian has some weird interactions, but I'll take your word for it. I think you're probably right. Would you consider here... As Akuchi, would you consider getting a ninja here? I might. You have to have the Guardian play when your opponent plays the attack. Oh. I see how... Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so if there's a Guardian out and they play block... If there's a Guardian out and they play Blockade, the attack is administered when the Blockade is played. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Okay, Black has the thorny one. I see. So does Guardian not block Black Cat? Oh, it's played on your turn, not theirs. Oh, I see. Interesting. I honestly kind of want to go back and look at this one, because this is like... This doesn't feel like your normal Dominion Kingdom. It has a lot of interesting options here. Okay, so Akuchi is going to see Bridge Troll, and they will be able to see... They can actually probably double Duchy here if they're going to go that route, which it could be the correct play. I don't know if it is, though. Because BC attacks when it's your opponent's turn, mostly. Yeah, I guess that... Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because Guardian's guarding attack blocking effect would have ended by the time you got a state or something with a Black Cat, or when your opponent has a Black Cat. Either way, so they opt to get a mining village. They get a bridge. They groom a Bridge Troll here. Could we be seeing a ninja here? I don't actually know. They opt for Guardian. Makes sense. Akuchi really wants to make sure they have as many villages as they can, which makes sense. The only other village you're gonna have here is Diplomat, which is kind of finicky and hard to play with. Why is Ninja at 10? Well, there's blockades here. It's not actually obvious if you pick up Ninja here, to be honest. Like, it doesn't actually seem... Because Guardian's here, it doesn't actually seem it... You don't know, you know? In my opinion, you know? I could see the argument to not pick up Ninja. I think you do want one here, but even... I still think the draw effect's pretty strong on Ninja, personally, but... Some people may disagree. It's one of those kingdoms where there's a lot of interesting options and angles here. At the very least, it's a draw card. That's true. What I'm personally kind of wondering is if they do... Will these players decide to play with Diplomat? You know, well, actually, Heron might be forced to play with Diplomat, especially considering now that Akuchi has taken all the mining villages here. So Akuchi's going to play a Bridge Troll, probably going to trash a copper and draw a card. I would assume. Actually, no, you can get a Diplomat. Okay, so Akuchi is going to play the Diplomat deck. That makes sense. Okay, yeah, so the deck that Akuchi goes for is the Bridge Troll, kind of the Bridge Troll Diplomat, empty all the provinces deck, which I like. I think seeing this board play out, I prefer that deck over the Bridge Troll Duchy Rush. Because generally speaking, as long as you don't give Groom the piles they need to pile out, you can kind of build big here with Bridge Troll. You would go for more Groom, I think. It makes sense. The only problem with Groom is you do have a bunch of like duchies in your deck, and you do need a Bridge Troll to line it up, you know? So it is a little bit more finicky than just like, I don't know, Bridge Troll Garden, not Bridge Troll, Groom Gardens, for instance. A couple of extra duchies is always nice. If I saw a run of someone like ending this game in 9 turns with a Groom Rush on duchies, then I may reconsider my opinion, but it seems a little bit slow, or it seems kind of slow to do that, to be honest. Bridge Troll's another terminal you have to play as well. Okay, so Akuchi has 4. They opt to get another Bridge Troll. I think that makes sense. Heron not having the best of shuffles. You know what, funny enough, Maho, you were talking about this earlier. A ninja would actually be pretty good here. If you were Heron and you had a ninja, what you could do... Oh, you could also... What you could do is you could draw a mining village and then draw an extra card off a ninja. So Heron could probably justify going to the shuffle a little bit more. Blockade upsetting Diplo is a great reason to skip it. Okay, wait. But, okay, if you play the Blockade... Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Not skip Diplomat, skip Blockade. I see your point, yeah. I think I agree. Heron elects to go into their next shuffle. They do see a bridge troll, but they have 3 mining villages outside of it. So... They elect to take a guardian. Can't really... The only thing you can do with 2 is maybe buy tax. Maybe you tax bridge troll for Aku. Yeah, that's... Okay, so the diplomat effect came in clutch here. Because Aku played a bridge troll. Well, if that's the case... Oh, Heron has a blockade in play? Oh. That is actually... But they also have an amulet. They're going to be fine. Yeah. They're going to be fine, though. They can just trash this copper and then take whatever... Take whatever they get from Blockade. But it does upset... You're right. Blockade... The Blockade effect does upset Diplomat. So it is not super obvious. So... Now Akuchi can't gain Groom. If you're Aku, do you just play these 2 bridge trolls and try to blockade? You play these bridge trolls and then try to blockade a bridge troll? Akuchi goes into their next shuffle. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess they have a lot of mining villages down there. I wasn't keeping track of the exact split, but I think Aku has somewhere between 6 and 7, which would mean they have somewhere between 4 to 5 down there. Which, unless they bottom deck every single mining village, I think they'll be okay. Blockade Duchy now? Doesn't seem like a bad idea. The only... I think that's one of the targets you would consider. Bridge Troll doesn't seem like a bad target either. Yeah, that's right. There is no attack. So, So, what did he set aside? He gains a diplomat, setting it aside. I'm not sure if diplomat is something I want to gain off blockade, to be honest. Like, it seems pretty hard. You don't have the diplomat in hand, and it seems pretty hard to set up. He's doing a good job of blending it with sculptures. Or she, not clear. I actually don't know Heron's gender. Or what their pronouns are, I'm gonna be honest. Let's see. True. Okay, so Aku could just take a bridge troll. Here in Tax's province, Aku could just take a bridge troll here, could groom a province, and just take on the debt, you know? The only thing is Aku couldn't really buy anything or pile out anything here. This tends to be one of the biggest problems of that line. Wait, could Aku technically pop this mining village here? He could. Aku could do that. Why are you standing there with a sword? The dude is ore farming, dude. Would you fight that guy? I'm not sure I would. I don't want to fight a guy with a sword. Be kind of scary, bro. I mean, with a bow, that guy's kind of toast. I mean, that's true, but yeah, I mean, that is true. Does Akko have a win here? You could do a duchy. What does Akko need to win? One gain short is what it looks like right now. I think you just... I think if I'm Akko, I just accept the debt from like 3 provinces. Let's see. They elect to get a duchy. Oh wait, Groom tax is only on buy, right? Interesting. They're emptying the duchy pile. So they get 21 points here. Which is probably okay. That's actually probably a pretty good play. It might be GG. Because now, what Heron has to do to win... Oh, that. You know what else doesn't help Heron right here? I think you just pop this mining village. Well. That Heron's debt is now coming back to haunt him. That's really low piles. This is just gonna lose. Yeah, this just loses. With Bridge Troll and Duchy, I think there just wasn't much. I think Akko smartly took out like Heron's main way of scoring here. And then, yeah, you can just pop all these mining villages, get Bridge Troll and Duchy, and that's game. And you can get a province too for fun. Alright, so the score should be 2 to 2.5. So... maybe it's a dream sequence, and the morning Moat wakes up and barely remembers what happens. Perhaps. Alright. 2 to 2.5, yeah. So Heron has 2.5, Akko has 2. Akko is going to need 1.5 to win, and Heron just needs 1 more game to win. They played 4.5 games. Oh, wait. My math is not mathing right now. So it should be 2.5 to 2.5 then, right? Oh, okay. I wouldn't... when I edited my video, I wouldn't miss that. But yeah, right now I would. Yes, it is 2.5 to 2.5. Alright. So, Akuchi gets a gear. 2, 3. Did they... were there 2 ties? Did that... what the heck? Is this like the Mandela effect happening in real time? Like what's... oh, wait. Oh, wait, yeah. Heron didn't tie that one game of Animal Fair. In my mind, he did. You're right. Okay. Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It is 3-2. Heron has 3. Akko has 2. Okay, so they both opened gear. They both opened gear cargo ship. Probably very much trying to look for an early Kitsune. That would make sense. 2 actions, give curse, and then... Okay, Akuchi requests an undo. They opt to not play their Kitsune this turn. Interesting. That's an interesting play. I don't... It's not bad, but I wonder what... But what I am curious about is, like, what is Akuchi trying to accomplish there? Maybe to C5 this turn as well? That must have been it. He was trying to C5 that turn, and then the 5 this turn as well. If that's the case, that's actually a really smart play. Yeah. League Tier Champs is first 3.5? I think so, yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, so no, that one game... In my head, I thought one game that Heron won was a tie, and it was not a tie. It was a win for Heron. I like it, otherwise you're playing for actions. And yeah, you get more payload. You do get more payload out of your Kitsune, playing your Kitsune for silver. So that was actually a good play on Akuchi's part. Heron getting a lot of stuff trashed off of the saunas there. If Heron can get some Avantos in play, there's a chance that they can, they get some Avantos in play. There's basically a chance that they can basically trash all the curses that Aku's dealing right now. Alright, so on Aku's hand, what is he looking at? He has a Sauna. I guess he's like trying to see what his bottom 2 cards are. That would make sense. He must figure they're not very important, so he plays the Sauna here. Alright, Aku gets in there silver. Heron gets in there gear off Berserker. Okay, they both get some more silvers. Obviously trying to get some Sauna trashing going. This is an interesting play. Does he play this for actions or coins? I'm curious. You could play this for coins, and if you wanted to get a Berserker effect, you could buy a Berserker and something else. Okay, so they don't curse here. Interesting. By this way, you'll get to play your Berserker attack again at 5, and put something good aside with Cargo Ship. So not really. So it's actually kind of a good play, I think. They get an Avanto set aside. Okay, cool. I think I want to set a supply. I think I want to set aside supplies as Siren. They choose to set aside a horse, which will give them one more draw, which is actually probably pretty good. So that's actually a good play as well. So, oh gosh, that's an ugly draw. This is the typical Avanto game. Your Avantos and Saunas never see each other. Okay, so Akuchi is going to see their Sauna, which will be very good for them. Aku could possibly set aside the Kitsune if they wanted to. I could see that. Good Harvest also just hit. What would actually be pretty devastating here, I think, is... Well, it's probably going to happen. Is that Akuchi will take the last Avanto. So, Aku will basically have... I don't know. Aku's going to have 4 Avantos, and Heron's only going to have 1. And four Avantos and 2 Saunas to 3 Saunas and 1 Avanto is... The 4 Avantos is much better. Right now... Yeah, Heron's in a bit of a bind here. I think that 1 Avanto shuffle will put him really behind. Surely you want to trash another card? Trying to think, was that like Aku's turn? Did he have? Yeah, I mean, you could probably... Aku could have... Well, Aku got a double five there, so there's a reason not to trash those coppers. Yeah, this is very resignable. Basically, Aku already has his deck going. Okay, yeah, Aku already has deck control. There's good harvests out. Aku is basically going to have a couple of turns of just being able to do whatever he wants. Kitsune is a good card. But yeah, with deck control, I mean, Aku will be able to thin down pretty quickly here. Okay, and Aku can also get some cities. Yeah, Aku just has a lot to work with here. Realistically, if he... Aku should have a win next turn. Gets a silver... Trashes Deus Estates. Is this simply just... I don't know. This... City Kitsune, maybe? Aim to win next turn? By gold? Yeah, gold gives you... It's like a super loot, yeah. Yeah, this is 100% resignable. I just resign here, but... I don't know, Heron can do whatever he wants. Or she. Or they. I guess it's not going to really matter that much. But my line of thought was, if you get another Kitsune, you just draw your deck, which seems likely. Then you can just empty the curse pile, and then empty, like, gears or something. But it's... I don't know, it's... At this point, Aku can just win. I mean, is there a win in hand? Let me look. Game Berserker? Yeah. Should be enough. Well, now it's not going to be enough. That's only going to be 4 buys. But it doesn't really matter. Aku is enough ahead. Yeah, Aku can just buy a province here and still Heron can't do anything. Or we can just empty cities as a fun side quest. Four buys Berserker again. Yeah, actually, that would have been enough. You could just buy the Last Curse and get 3 years. Yeah, that would have been enough. Yeah, that would have been enough, Maho. I guess as Heron, you take a province here. I mean, what else can you do? You could lower cities, so... I mean, I guess that's one thing you could do. That way, it's easier for Aku to empty them next turn, because I think at least it's easier to see cities emptying. Yes, there we go. There's the resign. Alright, so this is 3-3, this is game 7, you know? So, this is the last one. Aku, I think Heron's first. You could be watching the NBA Finals right now, but y'all are here to watch the C tier finals. So they open potion. Heron opens potion, pretty good because you know there's Apothecary and Scrying Pool, both of which I like. There's also Swindler. Gross. No one banned Swindler here? I guess not. Ugh. I mean, I guess you could hit their Grand Market and give them golds. Give them Fairgrounds. I guess you could hit a Scrying Pool and give them an Apothecary. That's kind of funny. That is a funny interaction. So bummed I'm not watching fellas stand around waiting for free throws and commercials for everything. Dude, I could put some commercials in if you're missing it. If that's what you're missing. I'm not gonna do that. But I did that once though. If you're going to 50% stone, why not just ban it completely? That is a good point. The only thing banned here is possession. I think the ban list is a little bit underutilized here, but you know, whatever. So Heron got an Apothecary first, which I actually don't disagree with, considering we don't actually have any thinning here. So Apothecary is actually better on these types of boards. Wait. So Aku has an Inventor and he's getting a bunch of black cats. I think with what was I gonna say? With black cat around, getting a bunch of black cats actually seems like a pretty good idea. Basically, since they can all just be played as pigs anyways, and if your opponent will have to buy a green card to score at some point. So it's not actually a bad idea. Alright. A copper will become a curse. Yeah. Well, you can give them the green... Oh, wait, yeah. That's actually pretty interesting. I didn't think about that. I ban Swindler, so I don't think about these things, but, like, you Swindler a black cat, they gain a province, and then you can throw a bunch of black cats their way. That is really interesting. But that also, you still have to be lucky there, is the problem. There's no village here, other than maybe getting away with the pig off a black cat reaction. So you'd have to be really lucky with your Swindler hit. Is there... I'm not... Like black cat... Okay, it's like your Swindler has hit... The Swindler has to hit a black cat. If it doesn't hit a 5 or a 2 cost. Or a 6 cost. Then it can't village, right? Like it can village, just that's... I'm not gonna lie, I'm brain dead right now, but... Alright. Heron plays two Grand Markets. Actually, okay, Heron's getting a lot of Grand Markets off his, Heron's Heron's getting a lot of great markets thanks to playing Camel Train as his terminal, which may be correct. These are some sad black cats from Akuchi, and it's very likely gonna be a while before any real greeting goes on. I think there's gonna definitely be like a lot of building here. Okay, Heron's sitting on an optimal order, getting rid of the curse, and then possibly being able to draw on more. So that's actually a pretty good subplay by Heron. Heron's seeing a much more grand markets. Okay, so no more potion. Another inventor. Okay. Well, it looks like Heron's gonna win the championship 4 games to 3. Yeah, I think Camel Train was a superior gainer to Inventor there. So that was pretty sick. Yeah, that was brutal. But that's what happens when you don't ban Swindler, dude. You gotta ban Swindler. So your game 7s aren't decided by random Swindler hits, you know? Camel Train for potion cost is also nice too, yeah. I think Heron got some apothecaries pretty early off that as well, if I remember correctly. And GM's, yeah. Heron just using the Camel Train to get a lot of hard things to gain, like GMs as well. So that was well played by Heron, I gotta say. You know, Heron had some 2 tricky wins that he found, and then, you know, in the last game, he went for the less powerful card to get the more to basically going for the less powerful card that was better in that instance. So that's always a cool play. So it was cool. It was cool. It was actually a fun match. I think both players were really well, and it was a really strong showing on a lot of different boards. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks, chat, for chatting. And yeah, it was all fun. This is EW Lemon, and I'll see you guys later.